Hello everyone. Welcome back to Anime Octopus, the place where imagination meets the anime multiverse. Today, we continue the journey with another exciting chapter of our fanfiction series. Naruko in the Avatar World, Part 3. As the worlds of Shinobi and Bending collide, new challenges, powerful encounters, and unexpected twists await Naruko in the Avatar universe. Get ready for action, emotions, and a story that changes everything. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is created for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any anime footage, music, or visuals used in the videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without wasting any more time, let's begin. Suki stared at the blonde teenager with wide, uncertain eyes. Something about Naruko felt unusual, almost impossible to understand. It was not simply her strength or confidence. It was the strange calm around her, as if she carried secrets older than the sea itself. The wind brushed across Kyoshi Island while the giant bird rested nearby, its feathers shining beneath the afternoon sun. Suki straightened her posture and folded her arms. "Who are you really?" she asked carefully. Naruko looked toward the ocean instead of answering right away. Her bright blonde hair swayed in the breeze, and her blue eyes reflected the waves below. "I'm someone searching for a place to belong," Naruko finally said. Toph tilted her head. "That sounded way too dramatic." Naruko laughed softly. "Maybe it did." Suki studied the traveler more closely. At first, Naruko had seemed distant and mysterious, but now she simply looked tired. Not dangerous. Not cruel. Just someone carrying far too many thoughts alone. The silence lingered until Toph crossed her arms with a grin. "So, are we staying here, or are we flying somewhere else again?" Naruko smiled sheepishly. "I know we've been moving around a lot." "A lot?" Toph exclaimed. "My back feels like it wrestled a badger mole." That earned a laugh from Suki. Naruko placed a hand behind her head awkwardly. "Sorry about that. I guess I'm not very good at staying still." Toph climbed onto the giant bird first. "You're definitely not normal." "Neither are you," Naruko replied playfully. Toph grinned proudly. "Good point." As the three girls prepared to leave, Suki glanced back at her village. Children ran across the bridges, villagers hung colorful lanterns, and the sea sparkled peacefully around the island. Then she looked at Naruko again. There was sadness hidden behind the traveler's smile. Suki had met many people during her time as a Kyoshi warrior, and she knew that sadness often came from loneliness. "Hey," Suki called out. Naruko paused. "Yeah? You don't have to keep carrying everything by yourself." For a moment, Naruko looked genuinely surprised. The words seemed to reach somewhere deep inside her heart. Far away in her memories, Naruko remembered darker days from long ago. Days when she had felt abandoned and angry. Back then, she had believed shutting everyone out would make the pain disappear. But it never had. Instead, the loneliness only grew heavier. She remembered sitting quietly in a small prison cell years ago, refusing to speak to anyone who visited her. Her old friends had tried again and again to reach her, hoping she would open up. At the time, Naruko thought pushing people away would protect her heart. Now, standing beneath the open sky with new companions beside her, she finally understood something important. A person becomes stronger when they let others care about them. Naruko took a slow breath and smiled warmly at Suki. "Thanks," she said quietly. Toph groaned dramatically from atop the bird. "If you two are done having an emotional moment, can we go eat something already?" Suki laughed. Naruko laughed too, brighter this time. The giant bird spread its enormous wings, lifting gently into the sky as the sunset painted the clouds gold and orange. For the first time in a long while, Naruko did not feel like she was running away from the past. She felt like she was finally flying toward something better. Naruko moved silently through the hidden underground passage, her golden hair swaying behind her cloak. The cold halls echoed with the hurried footsteps of the route agents chasing after her. TSK. People who hurt others should learn to stop, Naruko said firmly. Before the agents could surround her, thick wooden roots burst gently from the walls and floor, wrapping around their weapons and pinning them safely in place without harming them. The stunned ninjas struggled, but the living wood held them securely. Naruko continued forward with calm determination. I understand my powers much better now, she whispered to herself. Maybe it really is because of the Senju blood inside me. But no matter where this strength comes from, I'll use it to protect the people who matter to me. For so long, she had carried sadness and anger in her heart after losing her dear friend Kin. But now, standing in the dim tunnels beneath the village, Naruko realized something important. Revenge would never heal the pain. As she stepped outside into the moonlit air, she sensed familiar chakra nearby. Choji and his father, Choza, rushed toward her with worried expressions. Naruko? Choji called. Please stop. Everyone's afraid something terrible happened. Naruko tightened her grip on a wooden staff she had created from her chakra. For a moment, painful memories flooded her mind. The village had ignored her loneliness for years. Many people had judged her unfairly simply because of the nine-tailed fox sealed inside her. But Choji's voice was not hateful. It was worried. Choza carefully stepped forward. Naruko. Whatever happened, you don't have to face it alone. The anger inside her trembled uncertainly. Naruko looked away. You don't understand. Then help us understand, Choji said softly. The wooden roots around the nearby building slowly lowered back into the earth. The fierce wind chakra surrounding Naruko faded little by little. I thought if I became stronger, she admitted quietly, then nobody could ever hurt me or my friends again. Choza nodded wisely. Strength is important. But true strength protects people instead of destroying them. Naruko fell silent. High above them, Anbu scouts watched carefully from rooftops, ready to defend the village if needed. But they hesitated when they saw the tears beginning to form in Naruko's blue eyes. For the first time in years, someone was listening to her instead of fearing her. Suddenly, another presence appeared nearby. The old elder Danzo emerged from the shadows with his cane. This girl is dangerous, he declared coldly. She must be captured immediately. Naruko's fists clenched. The painful memories returned again, the isolation, the secrets, the manipulation. Her chakra flared wildly, causing trees nearby to shake. But before anger could consume her, Choji stepped beside her. You don't have to fight anymore, he told her gently. Naruko stared at him in surprise. No fear. No hatred. Just kindness. The wind slowly calmed around her. Danzo frowned. You would trust her? Choza crossed his arms. We trust people who choose compassion. Naruko looked down at her trembling hands. The same hands capable of creating powerful forests and mighty storms could also protect, heal, and build. At that moment, she made her choice. The massive wooden spikes she had prepared dissolved harmlessly into flowering vines instead. Bright blossoms spread across the cracked streets, filling the village with color and sweet fragrance. The watching villagers gasped in amazement. Naruko smiled faintly for the first time that night. I'm done letting pain decide who I become, she said. The moon shone brightly overhead as the wind carried flower petals through the air. And though the road ahead would not be easy, Naruko no longer walked it alone. Just as Inoiki and Shikaku arrived with Anko, Kurenai, Neji, Yamato, and several other jonin, they stopped in stunned silence. Buildings were cracked, streets were covered in dust, and frightened villagers peeked from windows and rooftops. At the center of it all stood Naruko, her golden hair swaying gently in the evening breeze. But this was not the bright and cheerful girl everyone knew. Her eyes were clouded with sadness and anger, and dark chakra flickered around her like a storm. Shikamaru stepped forward carefully. Naruko? What happened here? Naruko lowered her head. Nobody listened to me, she whispered. Everyone kept locking me away and treating me like a monster. Ino looked heartbroken. That's not true. We were worried about you. Naruko's expression tightened, but before she could answer, Inoiki rushed toward her in panic. Inoiki, wait! Shikaku shouted. Naruko quickly leapt aside, avoiding his attacks without striking back. With a swift motion, glowing golden chains burst from behind her, wrapping gently around his arms to stop him from moving. I don't want to fight you. Naruko cried. The Jonin surrounded her cautiously. Fire techniques lit the air, and kunai flashed toward her from every direction, but Naruko used her chains to block the attacks without hurting anyone. Please stop! Iruka shouted as he arrived at the scene. This isn't you, Naruko? For a moment, Naruko hesitated. Deep inside her mind, a quiet voice begged her to stop running from everyone who cared about her. But years of loneliness still weighed heavily on her heart. Anko stepped forward. You're surrounded, she said firmly. Come back with us peacefully. Naruko clenched her fists. Back to another cell? Back to everyone staring at me like I'm dangerous? No, said Tsunade's voice from above. Everyone looked up as the Hokage landed nearby. Tsunade crossed her arms and looked directly at Naruko. No more cells. No more isolation. Naruko blinked in surprise. You're one of this village's precious people, Tsunade continued. And we failed to remind you of that. The battlefield grew quiet. Even Kakashi lowered his head slightly. Iruko walked closer despite the tension. You're still the same girl who paints silly faces on the Hokage monument. The same girl who helped lost children find their parents during festivals. The same girl who dreamed of becoming Hokage so everyone would acknowledge her. Naruko's eyes trembled. I don't know who I am anymore, she admitted softly. Hinata stepped forward next. Though nervous, she smiled warmly. You're Naruko Uzumaki, she said. Our friend. One by one, others lowered their weapons. Kiba scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Yeah. You're loud and reckless, but the village would be boring without you. Even Shikamaru sighed. This whole situation is troublesome, but we'd rather help you than fight you. Naruko stared at everyone in disbelief. The dark chakra around her slowly faded. Tears welled in her eyes as years of pain finally poured out. Then, why did I always feel alone? Iruka gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Because sometimes people are slow to show how much they care, he said kindly. But that doesn't mean you were ever alone. The golden chains dissolved into glowing sparks. Naruko fell to her knees crying, and Sakura hurried over to help her up while Tsunade began healing her injuries. Around them, the tension finally disappeared. The village was damaged, but not destroyed. And for the first time in a long while, Naruko allowed herself to believe that maybe things could still change. As the sun began to rise over Konoha, Naruko looked at her friends standing beside her. Not as enemies, but as the family she had been searching for all along. Naruko stood in the center of the village street, her golden hair fluttering softly in the evening breeze. Dust and smoke drifted through the air from the damaged buildings around her, but instead of anger in her eyes, there was only deep sadness. Sakura stared in amazement as the scratches and burns on Naruko's arms slowly faded away. You healed so quickly, Sakura whispered. I've never seen you recover like that before. Naruko looked down at her hands quietly. A faint blue glow surrounded them before disappearing. I've changed, she said softly. But I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. The others nearby froze in surprise. Hinata lowered her stance. Iruka blinked in confusion. Even Lady Tsunade and Jiraiya, who had just arrived, paused to listen. Naruko took a slow breath. For a long time, I thought everyone had abandoned me, she admitted. I let my loneliness grow into anger. I thought revenge would make the pain disappear. The wind rustled through the broken trees around the village. But Kin reminded me of something important, Naruko continued with a small smile. If someone still believes in you, then you can choose a different path. Sakura looked down guiltily. Naruko. I know we haven't always understood each other. No, Naruko replied gently, but understanding starts when people finally talk honestly. The glowing patterns around Naruko's eyes slowly faded. The heavy feeling in the air disappeared with them. Iruka stepped forward carefully. Naruko. You're still my student. And no matter what happens, this village is still your home. For the first time in what felt like forever, Naruko's expression softened completely. You really mean that? I do, Iruka answered warmly. Hinata smiled with relief. We were worried about you. Naruko rubbed the back of her neck awkwardly. Yeah. I guess I scared everyone a little. A little? Jiraiya laughed loudly. You flooded half the training grounds. Even Tsunade sighed before allowing herself a faint smile. You certainly inherited your mother's dramatic side. Naruko blinked in surprise before laughing quietly herself. The tension that had filled the village moments earlier finally began to fade. The roots and wooden pillars surrounding the street slowly sank back into the earth under Naruko's control. Broken stones lifted gently as she used her chakra to help clear the road instead of destroying it. Moigi peeked out from behind a wall. So? We're not fighting anymore? Nope, Naruko answered. From now on, I want to protect the village, not damage it. Team Ebisu cautiously stepped closer while villagers slowly emerged from hiding. Sakura approached Naruko nervously. Do you think we could start over? Naruko looked at her for a long moment before smiling. Yeah, she said. I'd like that. As the sun began to set over the Hidden Leaf village, warm orange light spread across the rooftops. For the first time in many days, Naruko felt the heavy loneliness in her heart begin to disappear. She was no longer carrying hatred. She was finally carrying hope. Naruko swiftly tossed the small tanto toward Lady Tsunade, but Tsunade stepped aside with calm precision. In the blink of an eye, Naruko appeared above her, a glowing seal shining softly in her palm. The kanji for freeze, Hyokitsu, shimmered like frosted snowflakes. Sealing technique, absolute zero fang, Naruko whispered. The seal spread across Tsunade's back in bright blue patterns, gently holding her still like ice on a winter pond. Before Naruko could continue her attack, Jiraiya leapt forward and knocked her safely away with a powerful kick that sent her skidding across the ground. One of Jiraiya's shadow clones hurried to remove the freezing seal while the real Jiraiya formed hand signs at incredible speed. A giant dragon-shaped wave of fire spiraled into the air, glowing bright orange against the sky. Naruko's eyes widened. The flames rushed toward her like a blazing storm. She raised both hands, expecting to block the attack. But something unexpected happened. The fire did not burn her. Instead, the glowing flames swirled gently into her hands and faded away completely, as though the attack had become part of the wind itself. So, I can absorb chakra? Naruko wondered in surprise. Deep within her mind, the voice of the Kurama rumbled proudly. That is only the beginning, Naruko. You have awakened the legendary Rinnegan, one of the greatest dojutsu ever known. Naruko stayed silent for a moment, feeling the strange new power flowing around her like a river. We may not always agree, she said carefully, but we both want to protect ourselves and survive. Kurama gave a low chuckle. A fair point, Naruko. Perhaps we can work together after all. Before she could think further, Tsunade came charging back into battle with incredible strength. Naruko quickly dodged a powerful axe kick that cracked the earth beneath her feet. However, Jiraiya moved faster than she expected and struck her with a strong Sage Mode attack that sent her stumbling backward. Jiraiya clapped his hands together. Sage Art, Toad Fire Wall. Great streams of fire burst forward while the elder toads, Pa and Ma, released oil that made the flames roar even brighter. The fiery waves surrounded the battlefield in swirling heat and light. But as the flames slowly faded away, Jiraiya and Tsunade stared in surprise. Naruko stood safely inside a glowing shield formed by shining chakra chains that circled around her like golden ribbons protecting a treasured lantern. Jiraiya wiped sweat from his forehead and frowned slightly. "My sage mode is almost gone," she heard him mutter quietly. Naruko looked at her glowing chains in amazement. For the first time, she realized her powers were not only strong, they could also protect the people she cared about. Naruko moved through a graceful series of hand signs: bird, dog, rat, snake, and tiger. She brought her hands together with a bright smile. "Would release, great helping hands," she announced. From the earth rose enormous wooden hands shaped like gentle guardians. At the same time, glowing chakra chains spiraled upward from the ground like streams of golden ribbon dancing in the wind. The chains shimmered softly with wind chakra, creating sparkling swirls through the air. Jiraiya and Tsunade leapt out of the way, amazed rather than frightened. "Wow," Jiraiya said with wide eyes. "I don't think I've ever seen so many chakra chains at once." Kushina would have been proud. Ma balanced carefully on Jiraiya's shoulder and watched the wooden hands weave around the training field. "Jiraiya boy, she's overflowing with energy today," Ma exclaimed. "You'd better think of something before she turns the whole field into a forest." "I've got an idea," Jiraiya replied with a grin. He turned toward Tsunade. "Follow my lead." Tsunade nodded. Even after many years of adventures, the two legendary ninjas still moved with remarkable speed. Tsunade dashed forward and punched one of the giant wooden fists, causing it to burst apart into harmless flower petals. Naruko blinked in surprise. "Hey! I worked hard on that," she complained. The training ground quickly became a playful contest of skill. Naruko's wooden creations twisted and shifted while Jiraiya and Tsunade dodged between them with expert teamwork. "This really reminds me of Grandpa's jutsu," Tsunade said, catching her breath with a smile. One of Naruko's shadow clones suddenly appeared beside Jiraiya and gently tapped him on the shoulder. "Caught you," the clone declared proudly. Before long, several clones surrounded the Sannin. Instead of attacking, they held up ropes made of vines and wrapped them loosely around their arms in victory. "Looks like we win this round," another clone said cheerfully. Jiraiya laughed loudly. "You've gotten incredibly creative, Naruko." Naruko stepped forward, brushing a bit of dirt from her jacket. "I've been practicing every day. Lady Tsunade always says hard work matters." Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "I do say that." Naruko nodded proudly. "And I listened." She released the jutsu, and the wooden hands slowly sank back into the earth. The glowing chains floated away like fireflies disappearing into the evening sky. Jiraiya smiled warmly. "You know, your strength isn't what impresses me most anymore." Naruko tilted her head. "Then what does?" "The fact that you protect people while still keeping kindness in your heart," he answered. For a moment, Naruko stood quietly. Then she scratched the back of her head and laughed. "Well? I learned from some pretty great teachers." Tsunade crossed her arms, though she smiled proudly. "You still have a long way to go." Naruko grinned brightly. "Good. That means there's still more for me to learn." As the sun began to set, the three of them walked back toward the village together, joking and laughing while the training field slowly returned to normal behind them. With Kyoshi now under her control, it was finally time for Naruko to head home. Still, as the great bird soared through the clouds, she could not help wondering about her clan and what had become of them during her long absence. Toph sat behind her on the bird's back, gripping the feathers carefully as the wind rushed past them. "Wait a minute," Toph said. "You have more than one house?" Naruko gave a small grin. "Yeah. Otogakur has several hidden bases spread across different lands." Toph folded her arms. There was something unusual about Naruko. She could be cold and mysterious one moment, yet strangely inspiring the next. Even when Toph disagreed with her, there was a powerful presence around Naruko that made people want to follow her. "And you were the leader of this Otogakur place?" Toph asked. "I still am," Naruko replied proudly. I've led my people for many years. As the bird glided across the sky, Naruko looked toward the distant horizon. The world had changed while she had been away. New villages had risen, and nations had grown stronger. Yet deep inside, she believed her clan still had an important role to play in shaping the future. After a moment, Naruko glanced at Toph. Ba Sing Se has never been conquered, right? Toph shook her head. Nope. The walls are too strong. Lots of people tried, but nobody succeeded. Why are you asking? Naruko chuckled softly. No reason. I just think the city could use a few changes someday. Toph smirked. You always sound suspicious when you say things like that? Maybe I like surprises, Naruko answered playfully. Toph laughed. You're such a weirdo. And you're stubborn, Naruko teased back. The two girls exchanged amused grins before Naruko suddenly spoke again. Hold on tight, Toph. Toph wrapped her arms around Naruko's waist as the bird dipped sharply through the clouds. What are you doing now? Toph asked. You might feel a little dizzy, Naruko warned. Before Toph could reply, a brilliant red light flashed around them. In an instant, the sky disappeared. The two girls reappeared inside a vast underground cave filled with glowing green plants and towering stone pillars. The bird landed gracefully upon the rocky ground. Toph blinked in surprise. Okay. That was definitely weird. Naruko stepped forward and placed her hand against a stone wall. Bright white ceiling symbols spread across the rock like glowing vines. Slowly, the wall rumbled apart, revealing two enormous steel doors marked with the Uzumaki crest. The doors opened with a deep echo. Inside stood hundreds of people, men, women, and children with bright red or golden hair. The moment they saw Naruko, they bowed respectfully. At the front of the crowd knelt a young woman with desert blonde hair. Welcome home, she said warmly. We have waited many years for your return, great ancestor. Naruko studied her carefully. Raise your head. The woman looked up. She had striking teal eyes and warm tan skin, and there was a calm confidence in her expression. My name is Nezuro, she introduced herself politely. Toph tilted her head. You know her? Naruko's expression softened with surprise. She looks just like someone I once cared about, Naruko said quietly. Who? Toph asked curiously. Naruko smiled gently as memories filled her mind. Tamari, she answered. My wife. The cave fell silent for a moment as the clan members exchanged amazed glances. Toph stared at Naruko in complete shock. You were married? Naruko laughed for the first time in what felt like ages, and the sound echoed warmly through the hidden halls of Otogakur. Dear YouTube family, this is all for now. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time, Anime Octopus.